Hello everybody, so today we are going to do a overheating repair on a PS4. This is all the stuff you'll need, which is thermal compound, a Phillips 00 screwdriver, and a T8 Torx screwdriver, as well as some, well I didn't have it on here, some alcohol is always good to have, some IPA, the higher the better on the percentage, and of course some Q-tips. Let's dig in. So the first thing you're going to need to do is take your T8 and remove these two back screws. If your unit's a virgin, nobody's ever worked on it, then there's going to be warranty seals you'll need to remove to expose the screws there. Then you could go ahead and take off this hard drive cover. They'll take some pressure down and then over, and it should slide right off. And then once you get in there, you could go ahead and remove all these screws. Well, I'll get to that later. But yeah, just go ahead and remove all the screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 8 screws you could remove. And then this hard drive will slide right out. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 9 actually will be that one. Now when you pull this off, you'll notice there's a little metal clip in there. You do not want to lose that clip. Keep this as like a dish to put it in, or at least that's what I recommend doing. And then once you get that screw removed on this whole hard drive will pull right out. And before we get in too far, you're going to want an old toothbrush as well to get all those Grammys out. But now that we got those screws removed, we could go ahead and remove the other part of the housing. You do want to use special care on this particular power button. Let me show you how to address that in just a moment. Alright, so with this particular version, you want to use a lot of caution because that power button's easy to break. But if you pop open the housing like I did, you could pop the other part off here. The whole rest of this housing will pull off, and then you could just carefully pull just straight out on this power button to safely remove it. Alright, so now that we got the other part of the housing removed, before we go removing these screws and things, we're going to need to flip it over and do the other side. Now in order to do that, you'll need to pop it up from the corners. One side, then the other, and then the whole thing will lift up, and you want to slide it that way. If you have the unit facing you, then slide it towards you. Alright, and that will leave us with this. And the first thing you want to do is get this power supply out. In order to do that, there is three T8s. 1, 2 over there, and then 3 over here. Along with 2 Phillips heads. 1 here in the corner, and then 1 over here in this corner. Alright, so we got those 5 screws removed, and this is where it starts to get dangerous, and it's important. Muy importante. So the first things first is when you remove this screw, that's when that little metal clip is going to fall out. So be sure you have it on a table or in your lap or somewhere where you're going to know where that little piece goes. The other thing is when you pull this out, this cable right here is connected. You do not want to rip that off the board because then you got to bring it to someone like me to get it fixed, and it's not going to be cheap. So use a lot of caution on this part. So again, when you unscrew that little clip's going to fall. Then on this, I like to, well, I don't bring my third arm today, but I kind of wiggle on from both sides. Just use a lot of caution because this is the side that's connected. Once it comes up and loose, I'm going to see if I could do it with one hand. No, that ain't going to work. Hold on, I'll be right back. Alright, so once you get this loose enough, you could lift it up and off to the side, and then you could carefully disconnect it. I very gently kind of rock it back and forth while putting outward pressure. There we go. Okay, so now that we're that far, we'll need to use our fingernail and carefully pop this cable loose here. There we go. You'll need to also unroute it through all that stuff and kind of set it off to the side. You don't want it to get snagged in there. This will just pull up and out, but you have to be gentle. I like to fold the cable over and just pull up. This one, on the other hand, you'll need to very carefully lift up each side. It may or may not make that little pop noise like it did for me, and then that'll pull up And then the last one is like the first one. I just fold it over and pull it straight up and out. Alright, so since all that stuff's disconnected now, we go ahead and flip it over. With me, I had mine laying on the workbench, so there's my little clip thingy that everybody likes to lose. Just be sure to set that off to the side somewhere safe. That's why I say I use that little black part as like a dish. But anyhow, now that we're in here, we could get the rest of these other screws off. You'll need a Phillips head and the T8. Let me get a count here for you. Alright, so there's 17 more screws to go. And then that little plate over here will come up and off. And we could disconnect this cable here down in the corner. And then we could flip it back over and move forward from the other side. And also the fan here. Just kind of wiggle and gently pull. Don't put too much pressure. Alright, so we got the rest of the screws. We got the rest of the screws taken out. We went ahead and disconnected the power eject and the fan cable. And now we could go ahead and pull this whole thing up and off. Now, I like to replace these pads, but with you guys, you could reuse them. Ain't gonna hurt nothing. Just be sure that every single one of these chips has a thermal pad when you reassemble. It's very important. Alright, so now we'll need to take our Phillips head and remove these two screws. Use extreme caution not to let your screwdriver slip, because if you drag your screwdriver across the board, it's not good. Not good at all, to say the least. Alright, now once we've got that off, we'll go ahead and lift up and straight out. Just go slow, make sure there's no resistance, because if there is, you may have forgot to disconnect something, or it may be snagging on something and you need to dislodge it. And then we could start by cleaning. We're going to clean all this up and off, remove that old thermal compound, because it gets all dry and crusty. Look at it. But that's where you use your Q-tips and alcohol. This didn't need it. I literally took a dry Q-tip and it literally just crusted right off. Then we could remove these 1, 2, 3 screws, and then we could remove this whole piece, which will allow us to access the heatsink. Alright, so this will pull just up and out. Just always make sure there's no resistance. And then that will expose us to the heatsink. The heatsink is always fun. Heatsink is where the overheating issue originates. That and the compound, those are the main reasons for the overheating. So let's take our old toothbrush and clean all that up. Alright, now that that's clean, let's go ahead and move forward. Alright, so this is the internal fan. It's going to be real gunky, needs to be cleaned with the old toothbrush really well. You could maybe even use some canned air stuff, or douse it, and if it's high enough purity, you could just kind of spray it with the alcohol and let the dirt come off of it. But just remove that one screw and the whole fan will pull up and out. So like I mentioned, the fan is usually pretty nasty. You'll really need to get in there and use some elbow grease. I like to just use an old toothbrush. Sometimes I'll use really high purity IPA, and then I'll like spray it and then spin it. But you gotta use your noggin and realize that it's gonna spray everywhere. So if you have like a box or something, you could contain it. Otherwise, good old-fashioned elbow grease is generally the best way to go. Or if you have at your disposal some type of canned air, that also works. Now once you get the fan all cleaned up, then you'll need to clean the rest of the chassis. Then we could rebuild and apply the compound. Alright, so the fan's clean, the chassis is clean, so we'll put the fan back in place, put the one screw to secure it. Then we could go ahead and put our heatsink and everything back in. There we go. Make sure you could access the fan right here. And this little cable right here. I like to take this little cable and kind of prop it in there to where it ain't gonna go nowhere. Damn it, focus. Kind of prop it like so. Alright, and then you could go ahead and put these 3 screws back in. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now we could address this dried up crusty old compound. So we'll need to use some IPA and some cotton swabs to get that off. Once your chipset's been all cleaned up, you could go ahead and add about a pea-sized amount of thermal compound, and we could resume the rebuild. So it's just the opposite of when we pulled it out. So we need to put this end in first, and then this other end will slowly lower into place. And then we could connect these cables. Alright, now that those cables are secured, we could come over here. We could drop this piece into place. We could also grab the other piece. It'll go like so. But I like to bend it first. And then you could put the two really big Phillips head screws into place. Alright, so now we could set that other cover on top and then get all those screws in place except, and I'll show you which ones to not do in just a moment here. Okay, so you're going to put in all the screws except for this one here and this one here, because those is what holds the housing in place. And then basically the ones here are the little black ones. The three up here are the small silver screws. You could put that little metal clip right here. Then these two are the Phillips with the like kind of large cap, large head. This one's going to be one of the little black screws, while this one's going to actually be a T8. And then there's little black screws along the edge. Don't forget this one here. There's also a one that goes there that's a silver T8. Don't forget that one either. Trying to remember all the little spots, and I believe that's it. Yeah, you want that little cover. And then when you got that little clip there, you could put this cover on it, and you could actually secure it into place by securing those two T8s, one there and one there. Alright, so now this cover could go back on. It's going to go from the back, like latch onto the back, and then pop into place in the front. There we go. We can now go ahead and secure these two screws and insert the power button. Now you use lots of caution with this power button. You want to make sure it's as far down as it could go, because there's a special way it goes in, and then you'll slowly press it in until it pops into place, and then you should hear this like a click when you press it. And then you can move forward. I'm trying to brighten it. There we go. But you should hear like a... The hard drive will slide straight in. Then you could secure it with that Phillips head, the large Phillips head. And it's my favorite screw because it has all the little PlayStation symbols on it. Then we could go ahead and put the hard drive cover back on. Oh, there we go. Alright, so we could then flip it over and plug all these cables back in. You'll need to route this back through like I did. And then this could be tricky, just don't force it, it's easy to break. Make sure it's completely lined up before you try to press it down. These first and third connectors, it just goes straight down and in. Use that hard plastic blue stuff you see to where you don't damage your cable. And on this middle one, make sure you gently put a slight amount of upward pressure to make sure that this connector is ready to accept the cable. And then you could go, it's hard to do this on camera, then you could go ahead and put that in and then press that piece straight down. Alright, so once all those are connected, we'll go ahead and need to clean out our power supply unit, and then we could plug it in right here. And then we could carefully install it, and we're just about done here. So always start on the right side first. Make sure you don't damage these cables as you're putting it in, and then it'll go in like so. It'll go right and then down to left. So there's 5 screws total. There's the 2 Phillips heads in the corner, and then 1, 2, and 3 T8s. Now I could put the final part of the housing back on. It's going to go onto the front first. Like, yeah, great. Then you could put the final 2 T8 screws back in place on the back. And congratulations, you have now graduated YouTube tech with a degree in PS4 overheating repair. I'm just kidding. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this and it helped you out. Hopefully nothing was broke. If you took your time and followed the steps and all the precautions, you should be fine and now have a working unit. But either way, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. New videos dropped every week, every Sunday. And hit that bell notification so you don't miss any new video.